Hey team, we're back here talking about some period four review. So let's dive in. Period four covers 1800 to 1848. 1800, as where we left off last period, was the revolution of 1800, a bloodless revolution. But in the minds of Thomas Jefferson, as Democratic Republicans, was a monumental shift in America. It was the American people speaking out against the vision of the Federalists and acceptance of Jefferson's vision of a limited central government with more Southern agriculture based movements. It ends, though, in 1848 with the Mexican American War and some seeds of the Civil War. Ooh. Now, as far as concepts for this period, debates over the government's role. How much should they be involved? We'll see the emergence of some new parties like the Whigs, reform movements trying to alter society, innovation and technology, immigration, some terms throughout period four. In terms of government, judicial review will emerge. That's going to be in the Marbury versus Madison case, where it's from the transition from Adams to Jefferson. And there's a whole lot of midnight judges and appointments of that sort, but what really matters is that the Supreme Court weighs in with a power that's not necessarily defined in the Constitution, but the fact that they look over a case and declare a law unconstitutional. They actually be able to declare something that's in effect in their mind going against the Constitution, which is a massive checks and balance power that they'll wield really from that point. That point. We'll see the debates over a national bank. We saw this created in terms of getting the kind of battle between. Sorry, the guinea pig just grabbed a carrot and started running. It distracted me. The national bank between Hamilton and Jefferson. Hamilton arguing for the creation of one, and Jefferson arguing against it. But it will be created, and we'll see what Jackson does with it later. We'll see the Monroe Doctrine here in a little bit, a foreign policy shift. And Henry Clay's American System, we have more info on that. Compromise of 1820, one of those emerging debates over new territory gathered and what will that mean for the state of slavery in America. There'll be reform movements led by the Second Great Awakening, the women gathering of the Seneca Falls Convention advocating for a declaration of women's rights, and innovation and immigration such as the market revolution, later known as the old immigrant, but mostly Irish and German. We're going to dive into some of these in greater detail. So as always, if there's some that you want me to go over more or any questions at all, please let me know. The Democrats and the Whigs become kind of the new shifting political powers. The Democrats kind of are born out of the Democratic Republicans, right? This smaller farmer, this pioneer spirit, this limited government, this idea of agrarian life. And Jefferson is the precursor to this, right? The Jeffersonian Republicans or Democratic Republicans. And although these are kind of their stances, we see that that's not always what they live up to. Jefferson's Louisiana Purchase, clearly a massive central government move, purchasing land, just not listed as an executive power by no means, but he still did it. So maybe he wasn't exactly the limited government folk we think of, or even his the Barbary Wars, right? Where he starts to increase Adams' navy in a foreign war. On the opposition, though, we see what's going to kind of be what evolves from the Federalists. The Federalists definitely lost a lot of sway after the War of 1812, but the Whigs do emerge, and this has a lot of the same kind of ideas as far as more northern, industrial, stronger central government. Guys like Henry Clay, Daniel Webster will really define the Whigs. In terms of foreign policy in period four, The Monroe Doctrine is a big one. The Monroe Doctrine is definitely trying to say that America kind of controls the affairs of the Western Hemisphere. Now, what I like about this drawing is it definitely gets across the idea that it's really kind of empty talk. And from the perspective of Americans, they don't really have the power or presence to enforce this, but England certainly does. And so America is really trying to keep in check the rest of these European powers, not so much through their own might, but through England's. And this is still important though, because it will evolve over time, and America will eventually be able to enforce this themselves. A major addition will be with Teddy Roosevelt, right? The Roosevelt Corollary. And we'll see though that this sets a precedent for America kind of laying claim as the de facto power in the Western Hemisphere. More domestic expansion, though, comes in the form of the Compromise of 1820. With the Louisiana Purchase, with the quickly expanding United States, the debate has to continue, though. Will these states be driven through slavery or not? This was a debate had during the Constitutional Convention. The Three-Fifths Compromise brought up the issue of slavery right away. How will enslaved people count towards population? But now we're trying to solve this problem once and for all. So we had a very delicate balance of equal free states, equal slave states. So in the minds of many, that meant that neither side could overpower the other. But Missouri, or Missouri, wanted to become a slave state in 1820. So everyone quickly scrambles. And here's the kind of solutions they came up with. Missouri will enter as a slave state, but Maine will become a free state. So balance is still restored. It will also create this Missouri Compromise line. Basically, it's saying from this point forward, nothing north of this line can be slave. And people thought we had fixed the problem. Clearly, they're wrong. We'll have the Compromise of 1850, we'll have the Civil War, but this is an attempt at trying to quell those concerns. Another domestic issue, this is a kind of Whig belief, right? An extension of the Federalists. This is Henry Clay's American system. This was much like Hamilton promoting protective tariffs, those taxes on imports to encourage purchasing domestic products. That's great for those who are producing things, right? The industrial north, but this does increase prices for the rest of the country. They also supported a national bank, just like Hamilton, this idea of having a strong federally controlled system to manage the monetary concerns of the nation. Um, Hamilton created this by taking on debts from the states to improve international credit. And then also improving infrastructure, in some ways, cutting down the size of America, not literally, but by improving canal systems, by improving rail connections, even even early road systems, it would really strengthen a national character, a national unity. Now, the most famous of Democrats will be Andrew Jackson, and he will be really like one of the first like pioneer presidents, if you will, and tons of things that we learned about that were notable during his time as president. He had the bank wars, right? As a Democrat, he feared the institution of the bank. He thought it was a tool of the wealthy. It was working against the common man. He actually revoked its charter, not just didn't accept its renewal, but forced its revocation against Nicholas Biddle. And a powerful step by presidential authority there. But yeah, he actually removed the bank's charter. We actually wouldn't see the emergence of a national bank till much later. We saw him handle the nullification crisis. South Carolina viewed one of Henry Clay's tariffs as a tariff of abomination. And although as a Democrat, he might politically agree with that idea, Jackson couldn't stand a state feeling they could nullify or ignore a federal law. So he actually threatened invasion of South Carolina, close to an early civil war. But cooler heads prevailed. Henry Clay steps in, and compromises are reached. We also saw expanded suffrage during the age of Jackson. We actually saw property rights in many states revoked, which meant increased suffrage for many white males, which led to, or helped lead to, the election of Andrew Jackson in 1828 after that corrupt bargain of 1824, where he felt the election was stolen from him. And of course, we can't ignore the Indian Removal Act, where Jackson cruelly dispatches numerous American tribes, the Cherokee in particular, on a trail of tears, and even in the face of Supreme Court action, actually ruling against his decisions. But he claimed the court has made its decision, let them enforce it. A very alarming expansion of executive authority. We also see reform movements in this era, the Second Great Awakening. The First Great Awakening we saw as something that helped kind of inspire revolutionary mindsets, but the Second Great Awakening is going to be much more about like personal connection and in some ways a personal desire not to just repent your own sins, but having a moral obligation to help society. We'll see this morph into the social gospel movement. This also attracts large amounts of African Americans and women. In many ways, it's another form of early American unity, something that can occur across all parts of society, not just one. We also, of course, see the market revolution, this idea of industry really emerging in America, what that does for northern cities, what this does for the nature of work. We see this tied directly with new waves of immigration, Irish and Germans appearing and facing discrimination, no doubt, but also emerging in this new workforce. This new kind of abundance for labor starts to reach out to all new Americans, people maybe not necessarily living on their small agrarian farm, maybe now move and work in a factory. Many Irish and Germans come, and this appeals to them. So that's period four. I'll be posting another AP Classroom for you to review and look at. So as always, please let me know what questions you have. We'll do period five tomorrow.